What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are finally back with another banger video, and I know this is going to help you guys a lot. It's super educational, but basically I'm going to be showing you how I find an A+ setup. So I'm going to be showing you the main difference between an A+ setup and an A setup, and I'm going to be showing 5 different examples. So if you want to learn and get better at trading, I really suggest you recommend staying till the end. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting off, I want to show you the difference between an A and A+ setup. Okay, so there's one main difference. Every single A+ inversion that I will take always has two things: a liquidity sweep, okay, like this, and a fair value gap or some PD rate to the left. People ask me if I use order blocks, but I always just use a fair value gap, okay? Order blocks are fine, but fair value gaps are just stronger, okay? So an A+ setup will always have those two things, and it will also always be in discount. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you can get one of these setups super high in the range, but the A+ setups will always be in discount at this liquidity sweep. So we're going to say this is just a low. It's going to be some low to the left. I'm not going to pretend I know where it is. And then there's some fair value gap to the left right here. So no matter what, an A+ setup always has that, versus an A setup only has one of these. Okay, but typically an A setup will be in discount for longs or premium for shorts, right? Above the 0.5 is going to be premium. Below is going to be discount. So let's just look at some live examples real quick. So we have our first live example right here, and it's very, very textbook, but it's an A+ setup for 3 reasons. It's an inversion, we V-shape above it, but the important part is we swept liquidity both here, and if I go to the left, also here. So you swept liquidity, and at the same time, if I go to the hourly chart, we also are delivering from a fair value gap. So we tap the fair value gap, took it to sell side, and then we have a 2-minute singular inversion fair value gap, as you can see here. Okay, now because this is Asia session, it didn't play out that cleanly, but if you were to see the same signature and price exactly as I'm showing you here, it's going to play out different every session. I'm just using this for an example, and it doesn't really matter because 8 out of 10 times this will work pretty good and probably goes pretty straight up. But I want to show you it's an A+ setup because it has a liquidity sweep and we hit a fair value gap. So in this example here, you know, I would obviously long the close, or you could wait for the retrace. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. And then I'd maybe scale half it like this fair value gap because you don't really know if we're going to break it for 1 hour and then move stop the break even and then hold the other to here. So that's going to be the first A+ setup. Now, I want to show you like what would be an A setup. Well, an A setup would be the same thing, except let's take away this fair value gap. So let's say there's no fair value to the left. Well, this would only be an A setup at that point. So the next example is right here. And this is a live example of an actual A setup, unlike the first one. So we have our singular fair value gap here. We have our liquidity sweep from over here. And it has not too much displacement below, so it's a pretty good one. However, what's missing here? A fair value gap. So in my opinion, or based on my system, in which if you are interested in looking at the ratings guide, click the link in the bio below. I have a full ratings guide in A+ through B through C setups, which I'm explaining here in this video. So make sure to check out that link if you're interested in actually looking at a PDF of it. Anyways, there's no fair value gap here, so therefore this could not be an A+ setup. It can only be an A or less. Now, my third question is it a discount or premium? Well, this one is definitely in discount, you know, and it's very low in the range, so it automatically is an A setup instead of like an A- or B+. So if there was a fair value gap here, it would be an A+ setup, but there's not. But there's still a liquidity sweep, so I consider it an A setup. Moving on to the third example, here is another A+ setup. As you can see, we have a fair value gap here in the 15-minute. And one of the most common questions I get asked is, does it have to be a 1-minute fair value gap and a 1-minute IVG? And the answer is no. It could be a 15-minute fair value gap delivery and then maybe a 1-minute IVG, which is actually true to this example here. So we have a 15-minute fair value gap here, And if I were to go in the lower time frame, such as the 2-minute, to check to see if there's a singular fair value gap, we do indeed have one. And this would be an A setup because we're sweeping this liquidity here, this liquidity here, which is a low inside of the fair value gap, which I talk about in my live sessions as really good liquidity. But the point is, it's an A+ setup because we have a sweep, we have a fair value gap delivery, and you can see it's in discount, and we retrace under the 0.5 level. Let's see if it's in discount from here. And it's not in a discount from here, but relatively compared to the range and the average, I would consider this in discount. I'm not too picky about it, but as long as it's not super high in the range and we're not a high day and we get it, then this is generally going to be an A+ setup. Now, moving on to the fourth example, we have pretty much the same pattern I was looking at before. We're in discount, and this one is definitely a little more clear, right? You can see we go into the 0.5. We have a fair value gap to the left, and I'm sure if I were to go in the 5-minute, this would probably be singular fair value gap. So I'm just going to combine it, and you have the fair value gap inversed. So when it inverses, I pretty much just buy the market close, and I just target the next high. But it's an A+ setup because not only do we deliver in the fair value gap, we sweep all of this liquidity here, here, and even this mini liquidity here. So this would be another A+ example. And for my last example, I'm going to show you one little different scenario. So let's say in this example, we get our inverse, right? We go down, we deliver out of this fair value gap here, and we pop back up. Would this be A+ or just an A setup? Well, technically speaking, since there's no super obvious liquidity here, I'd probably only give this an A setup. Now, could you argue on the lower time frame this is A+, and could you argue this is a pronounced liquidity sweep? Yes, you could, but I guess it just depends on the person. Ideally, the liquidity sweep I'm looking for is like a low a day sweep, a really obvious low inside of a fair value gap sweep. And while this is somewhat there, I feel like there's definitely better examples versus this is much more obvious. So I guess you can consider this an A+ setup, but for me, I'd probably just give this an A setup. Now, let's say I go back real quick, and let's say we form a bunch more candles like this, and all of a sudden we have a low, pops down to here, go back up, boom, 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 more candles, and then we take it out again like that. I definitely give this setup A+ if we formed a pronounced low and then retook in that fair value gap. But because none of these are super pronounced, I'd probably just give it an A setup. And here are just some examples of a bunch of testimonials, a bunch of profits, and just a bunch of successful students where they put in the work and they become profitable. And, you know, all these guys are living the life that they want to live. So with that being said, here's just some examples. And if you are interested, I do upload on YouTube for free, but I did just start a one-on-one mentorship where it's very private, very personalized. It's got a lower acceptance rate than Harvard. I have denied a lot of people, but there's only, I think, 16 or 15 spots left at the moment. And my favorite part of the mentorship, which you can apply at the link below, by the way, is an accountability program. So basically what I did is I created this accountability journal, okay? And I put 4 students in a group, and I basically had them meet once a week where they are going to be accountable for their actions, show their P&L, and just overall make sure that they have partners to keep them in check. I also have a ton of quizzes and exams throughout a bunch of coursework, but that's pretty basic, even though a lot of other mentors don't do the quizzes and exams. And overall, I just get a call a lot, give some people my phone number if you really need it, and I'm very accessible, and I do 2 classes a week. So if you're interested, it's totally free to book a call. Just click the link in the description, and I hope I can see some of you. And for the ones who get denied, just remember, my YouTube is free. Okay, you don't need to pay me to become profitable. This is very private, and I'm upload videos for free for a reason. I don't want your money. Okay, but this is for people who are going to be dedicated, work extra hard, and people that I want to spend my time teaching who won't waste my time. that I know has a strong chance of becoming profitable. That's it for this video. Don't forget to use code Dodgy for an Apex account, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.